Good morning. How are you today in this beautiful morning? Today is the second day. Yesterday was the first day that it was under 20 degrees Celsius before sunrise. Yesterday was 19 and today it's 17. And frankly, you can feel it. Now obviously these are very comfortable temperatures for other climes, but that's the way it is. Different folks, different strokes, different places. I remember when I came here first, it was always surprising to see the local population putting on jackets. This early in the fall. I guess it's winter in many places now, but here I don't think it's winter. So I'm just going to get my jacket, if you don't mind, and I'm going to turn off the lights here. So just hold on a second. Just be patient with me. Over the last few years, we have come down live this little stairwell, little spiral staircase. So my room is upstairs, so I'm going to get my jacket up here. Doesn't sit too well there. I wonder if I take the chance and put it here. That'll be better. There we go. Just hold your horses now for a second. So long sleeves make a difference in a fresh morning walk. So there we are, we go downstairs again. We got those two little sticks on top of the garbage bins because there were cats that were very clever and could open up the garbage bins. We had a cookout here last night. One of the volunteers did an excellent job at the grill. It was a nice moment. And our small little team here in these circumstances. There are two lines that made me smart in a nice way, this morning. And one of them was, here you have a sprout from the stump of Jesse. One of these lines was, in the Psalm, and the other one was at the end of the Gospel. And it's a very powerful line, and there's a lot of fruitful reflection from this line. His own who are in bonds he spurns not. Now that's the last thing that would come to mind in all the people who have been taken hostage. Their families have the exact opposite. They're crying and weeping for them to come home. Somehow it's more sensitive in my heart at this moment, living here. I remember I was in the US when all the hostages were taken back in 1979. All the American hostages. And the challenge it was to find a solution for them and their families. And the burden it was. When people are in bonds, in chains. But then you could spread that out a little bit more and say they're in the bonds of illness. Or suffered an accident. No sane thinking person would spurn their own. That's when you show more love, you come closer together, you help. But then there are also other bonds. There are bonds of addictions. And sometimes this becomes a bit more troublesome because, okay, an accident or a cancer or being taken hostage, they're outside the will of the individual. With the process of addiction, sometimes there's participation of the person's will in heading down that road and falling down into those customs and habits. Or we could take another one, let's say that's more morally clear, that somebody going into sin and being tied in bonds of sin. And that's very, very complex as well. We can't judge because we don't know all the elements involved and all the conditionings, all the circumstances, all the pressures. But there's also personal responsibilities involved in differing degrees. Only God can judge, but it's much easier to spurn somebody who has committed crime, and somebody in the family, somebody in the neighborhood, somebody in the same business you work in the same political party, in the church community. It's not easy not to spurn such people. And that's really when we see the maximum of revelation that God doesn't spurn us. There's a lot of language, a spurning type of language in the scriptures, and sometimes it's put into God's mouth, but it's also a reflection of how we human beings reject the other. And the ultimate statement that we have from God about all of this, from a Christian perspective anyway, is that he became flesh and died on the cross to redeem us. God loved the world so much he gave his only son. So there we have the maximum expression of his own who are in bonds he does not spurn. We are made in his image and likeness, and no matter how deep we fall, he doesn't spurn us. There can be great issues for relationships between spouses, and that's used also in the scriptures to express the relationship between God and his people. Israel, my spouse, and the church, the spouse of Christ. Sometimes so much dereliction, so much depraved behavior in members of the church. His own who are in bonds he does not spurn. We are quick to spurn, quick to reject, quick to exclude. And it's very interesting also in the thinking of the church in regard to a measure that's very serious and very grave, the measure of excommunication. I remember even as a child learning about that term, and also learning that the church didn't judge the person. That it was a measure of pedagogy to have the person realize how grievous their sin was so they could return, and that ultimately God was the judge of their soul. So it was an exercise of communal action to bring the person to their senses, because the threat of excommunication is very serious. I happened to have been with a bishop who was very involved in the case of the Catholic group who followed Archbishop Lefebvre. And I happened to be with this bishop for a few days, and he was very involved in the case. And I remember when the bishop went ahead to ordain 4 bishops without the communion of the church. How he suffered, how he was so sad that Archbishop Lefebvre went forward and did the ordination, knowing that automatically, because that was already announced, that he would incur excommunication. These are big themes, but at the end the church knows that that disciplinary measure is all within a context then of pedagogy and a context of reaching the person, of trying to put a limit to the hemorrhaging of the communion, of the experienced communion in the church. But that at the end of the day, the judgment about the person is only in God's hands. extraordinary respect before the freedom of the individual. But I think we should come down from those clouds. There's no cloud in the sky today, not one. But to come back down into our own kitchens and our own places of recreation and our own political parties, and reflect on those who are our own, who are in some form of bonds, and to reflect if we have spurned them, or if we should today send out some little signal of communion, of being one with them, that they belong to us, they are ours, we belong to them. How can I help you? I am here. Some little gesture on the occasion of a birthday, of an anniversary, some little gesture of that kindness, of that goodness, because they are our own. They are relatives. They are related to us. That's the meaning of the word relative. So I only stayed with one line, and I think the time is almost up. The other line I wanted to comment on, but I won't do it in depth, is I think it's the last line of the gospel passage. And it says about doing things that your reward will be in heaven. How many things do you do with the awareness that you're not going to be rewarded here? You might even be castigated. What things did you do yesterday with the consciousness that your reward is in heaven? That's a huge field to ponder. A very blessed field. Very fruitful for our spiritual lives. I leave it like that. See you later, alligators. God bless you. Great to have you here. You see, I put on my jacket. I need the long sleeves. Although right now it's beginning to, you can also feel the sun, not just see it. Its warmth is reaching the earth here and reaching the water. God bless you. God love you. Oops, I already did that. I need to turn it off. Goodbye.